All right, about 2 weeks after the country's apex court ordered the continuous use of the old Naira notes, the Central Bank of Nigeria finally orders the old 200 Naira, 500 Naira and 1000 Naira notes remain legal tender until December the 31st, 2023. CBN spokesman Isa Abdulmumin announced this development in a statement on Monday. The statement directed all deposit money banks operating in Nigeria to comply with the Supreme Court ruling of March the 3rd, 2023. Well, joining us to discuss this development are two gentlemen, strategy consultant Dipo Oyewole. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And via Zoom from the United States is the convener, Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative, Marindoti Oludare. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Right. You were one of those who criticized this policy by the federal government and the CBN. And now the CBN has finally made a U-turn with regards to that. Give us a sense of how you feel with regards to this directive.
I mean, I'm like, after all this time, like it took them already too long. And I was overhearing, your conversation about this old policy. This old policy, in my own personal opinion, never made any sense. I saw a top economist, give the data of the money supply in Nigeria. All cash is money, but not all money is cash. According to the data, the money supply in Nigeria is about 52 trillion, out of which 3.23 was cash. So the fact that he was trying to mop up money, he was just trying to mop up cash for, political gains. And the problem is that, the reason why we are in this mess, in my own opinion, is because the president, the CBN governor, and the AGF never learned about the rule of the hole, which states that when you are in a hole, you stop digging, because the more you dig, the further you go down in the depth of darkness. Had they known that when the deadline was approaching and they knew they didn't have enough cash to distribute, they would have reversed this policy anyways. And also, another of the rule of the oath says that you should always let logic take over and not your ego. When they got to the point where they saw that they were making mistakes, their ego now started taking over, as opposed to, do the logical thing and make a U-turn. And that their ego cost Nigeria about 20 trillion naira, according to a report that I saw in the newspaper. And also about that same rule of the O, when you stop digging, you are still in the O, so you need to get out. And that is what the president was trying to do by trying to hands off and say, no, I did not say anything. The president is saying he's not stopping the CBN from, obeying the Supreme Court order. However, on February 16, the president came out and disobeyed the Supreme Court order. So what is the president actually really saying, And back to the rule of the O. When they say if you see somebody digging a hole, don't go and join them. And I think that was what the Attorney General of the Federation did, because he didn't need to play the role he played. He has his own integrity to protect. And the last rule of the hole, I think, is what affects all of us Nigerians, is that when a hole has been dug, we must fill it up to prevent other people from falling into that hole. And in my own opinion, I believe that section 20, subsection 3 should be reviewed and, taken out, because the central bank can change money whenever they want. But since somebody has weaponized this thing to cause a lot of havoc and a lot of heartache and try to put Nigeria's economy on its knees, we can actually respond by, preventing the CBN governor from being able to declare money not to be legal tender, just to prevent the subsequent person, from doing it. Our own case is still in the court and it's going to be heard on March 30. And one of the things that we want to specify is that the CBN governor never had the right to say what he said on November 23, which was that the money becomes useless in your hands. That's all. Because according to the CBN Act, it shall be redeemed. And once that is confirmed, we are going to institute a class action suit against Emefiele himself, because he never had the power to say that, to make us the panic. So he is responsible as a person. He is not covered. He is not indemnified. This is very, very wrong. This is very, very heartbreaking. This is not, there is no thank you or anything. No, we should prevent it. We should hold our public office holders responsible so that the subsequent people who are coming to replace them will learn a lesson. We always need to set an example. This travesty cannot be allowed to go unanswered. People need to be held responsible. Heads should roll. We are even hearing that he's coming up with another plan right now. That is the CBN governor. Someone needs to tell that man that the jig is up. We know your tricks. We know your plans. So you might be cunning, but you are not cunning. So stop. Please stop pushing Nigerians into, so much trouble. And another opinion that I kind of like feel also, but I am not a lawyer, so I don't know, is that do the banks really have to wait for the CBN order to obey the Supreme Court order?
Of course, they are the regulators. They are the regulators of the commercial banks, so they have to wait.
Yeah. Yes, but my own opinion is if the bank disobeyed, I think they should be covered by the fact that the CBN governor, the CBN itself, is already under the order. They don't have to wait. It's like the banks don't respect the law. I think it's a part of the learning process in our democracy, because in other climes, once the Supreme Court says it, nobody is waiting again, because it's like the Supreme Court's injunction, the Supreme Court's order is
if you are under a regulator, you have to wait for the directive of your regulator before you can make any decision. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's possible. That's why I said I'm not a lawyer. I just feel like, maybe the banks could have unilaterally obeyed the Supreme Court, injunction. But I understand that, and that's probably part of the development in our democracy also that we need to work on.
All right. Well, thank you, Marindo. The point there is actually a process, and if you look at the judgment of the Supreme Court, it wasn't to the commercial banks. It was to the institution that is responsible for the finances generally. So they have to wait for the circular from the central bank before they carry it out. That's the proper process. Now, let's bring in Dipo in here. Now, we have seen all of the things that happened, stories from Nigerians from within Lagos, Abuja, across the country, the difficulty, the challenge, the frustration, the outbursts, even the protests regarding this thing and all of that. Do you think that at the end of the day, we're here now, but has the central bank achieved its objective for this redesign in the first place? What do you see?
Thank you for that question. And that was going to be my first question to the governor of the central bank, to ask what was achieved in the last couple of months that you have done this. What was achieved? And for me, I find it very, very offensive that it's taking 2 weeks after the apex court of the land gave a directive, gave an injunction, and it's taken them 2 weeks to obey. Now the question is, who is the central bank governor to disobey a Supreme Court order? Because we have to be very, very serious with these conversations. Now, are we running a lawless system? Are we running a country
where... Recall that initially he said the central bank was not joined in the suit taking to the courts.
So all that is, we all know all that was semantics, really. It was really semantics. Because initially, so I think it was it February or so, or January, we had this particular conversation here where we're talking about the pros and the cons of the entire redesign of the Naira, saying this is how to go about it and all of that. And it was after that we heard that they didn't have paper to print. We were hearing all sorts of funny things that showed that
they came out to debunk that it wasn't true.
And if that wasn't true, what was the improvement in the system? Because as far as I'm concerned, this entire policy was done in bad faith towards Nigerians. No matter whatever ulterior motive they had, no matter whatever excuse they were telling us, it was done in bad faith, and it is inexcusable. And as far as I'm concerned, there should be some legal recourse for Nigerians, because a lot of people have suffered a lot of loss. I heard you talking about the woman you buy a banana from. We've seen videos all over of people who have had their means of livelihood affected by this particular policy. We're not saying it isn't good. We're saying the execution was poor. Clearly, it wasn't thought out through, and we're here now. And at the very end of it, what have you achieved? saying that, okay, now we can go back to the same thing that we're talking about before. In the last couple of months, 1, what have you achieved? 2, what were the lessons you learned? Nigerians demand an answer, and Nigerians deserve an answer. We deserve to know. What did you learn? What are you doing to change it moving forward? Because until we have these answers, you will find that December 31st will come and we'll still be having these conversations, which is one thing that we like to do over here. We do not ask these questions and we do not get answers for them, even when we ask the questions. Because when there are no lessons learned, you are bound to make the same mistakes all over again. In this case, was it really a mistake? Was it really just mischief? Because for me, I really do not see any point whatsoever with this entire policy. We already had a system in place where we were complaining that, okay, you know what, we're still having issues with bank transfers and all of that. Now you overwhelm that particular system to the point where people had transactions hanging for 2 weeks. People did not have access to cash. People did not have access to bank transfers that were going through. In the last couple of weeks, I've heard at least 1 or 2, 3 people tell me that they had to sleep on the office because they work on the island, live on the mainland. People have to sleep in the office. People that work in the bank that don't even have access to cash. What kind of system are we running? Either it's an election season or not, the execution was poorly done. So we need to know, what was the objective? What was the real objective? Because we need to know what the real objective of this entire process was. Did you achieve it? Yes or no? So we need to know if you wasted our time, you wasted our resources, and you have caused a lot of damage to our economy, our already struggling economy. We got a report, was it 20 trillion naira that was said that we lost?
Yes.
In an economy that we're saying we are broke, we are broke, we are broke. Talking about subsidy coming off, people are struggling to see how they can live and survive as Nigerians. This is how we want to lead this country. And then we had the president come out to say, oh, I didn't tell him not to obey, not to disobey the Supreme Court's order. But did you impress on him the need to do so? Because in the end, the buck stops with you. You are the president.
It was the presidency that said it wasn't. It was the presidency.
The president is at the head of the presidency. Let us not do semantics this morning, Mike. The CBN governor serves at the pleasure of the president. I must be very honest with these conversations. He serves at the pleasure. If the president instructs him to obey the Supreme Court order, even without the AGF playing games with it as well, will you not obey it? You obey the court order or you are out of the job. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Nigerians are languishing. You have people living like destitutes, people that have money. There was a report of a gentleman that was walking to the office and died on the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We heard that story.
What kind of country do we live in? People are already under a lot of stress, a lot of tension. You do not need to add to it. It is not necessary. And what recourse do we get? No apology, no explanation, no nothing. It isn't good enough. He needs to be prosecuted. Something needs to be done. It's unacceptable. We cannot keep governing people like this. We cannot be running this country like this, where people act with impunity. Who is he? You are the governor of the central bank, and then you seem to be above the law? Where's that done?
Is it possible that the central bank is just made to take the fall instead of the government? Because the point there is, there's nothing the CBN is going to do if it doesn't have the
Directive
blessing
or
of-
the
the
backing
blessing of
from
the
the federal
Exactly. So
government.
that is why that's why I made a statement earlier that I said the statement by the president or the presidency or whichever you want to put it
Presidency.
it doesn't hold water.
Right.
It doesn't hold water. Oh, we didn't tell you not to obey. But did you tell him to obey? Because in the end, they are in cahoots with this entire thing. So you can tell me that maybe the presidency, they are not very familiar with monetary policies, or he gave them wrong advice. But you'll be getting feedback from Nigerians for weeks about the hardship going on. We did not elect the CBN governor. We elected the person at the head of the presidency. Is he not meant to be sensitive to our plight as a people? He is supposed to, so the buck stops with him. So plus the president, the presidency, the CBN governor, the CBN, all of them, they need to be held to account. It is unacceptable. We cannot keep running this country like this. It is not acceptable. We are free citizens in our own country. We cannot keep living as if we are destitutes. For what reason?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Now, let me bring Marion Dotti in at this time. Um, I'll throw the same question to you from this perspective. There are those who had asked, is there a need for me to have a bank account at this point? Do you think people would trust the system and at the end of the day, the CBN achieving its purpose? Because it seems right now people would say that if I couldn't access my monies at the time, what would be different moving forward? So how do you see these things panning out?
This is such a catastrophic, economically catastrophic move by the CBN. In 1929, what caused one of the major triggers of the Great Depression was that people lost trust in the banking system and they started withdrawing all their money. Now, I gave the statistics. We have just 3.2 trillion of the money supply in cash. What happens if everybody starts saying we want to get our cash out? We won't even have enough cash to give all of them. And so the CBN governor just he has messed up the economy for the past 8 years, and then as a final act, he did the most dastardly thing ever. And that man is a politician. He tried to run for office. And he had to be stopped by the courts. And we are even hearing that he's even making other plans right now to support the Labour Party candidate in Lagos. It's in the news.
He has
It is
debunked
obviously
that.
in the news.
He has debunked that.
Yes, he can debunk it, but I don't expect him to also say he's doing it. And I mean, I just want to air my own personal opinion out here because I am a Nigerian. I identify with the Nigerian culture, with the Nigerian heritage. This is even though I'm ethnic Yoruba, it is my dress. In Akwana is my greeting. Kedu Kodi is my greeting. So we have this shared heritage. And we are not the only multilingual country in this country, in the world. In Canada, in the province of Quebec, you cannot be the premier if you don't speak French. In Belgium, the French-speaking part of the country of that place, you cannot be the leader of that place if you don't speak French. So here we have Dipo Oyewole, a Yoruba man that does not speak Yoruba, and he's trying to run for the governor of Lagos, and he's supposedly being supported by the CBN governor, even though he's debunking it. This is the issue of the thing is not you don't qualify to be the leader of the people because you are the son of a man. You qualify because you are the son of the soil.
Do you think the people will trust the system?
The people have already lost trust in the system. They are not going to get. They are not going to. Once the money is become available, they'll take as much as they want and put it in their homes. Because they were tricked into trapping, their money in the what's it called, in the banks already, and this is going to have significant impact on our economy. So it is very difficult for the Nigerian economy to recover. The only thing that I think is good is that there is already a sunset of this administration, and a new one is coming in that is going to announce its own policies, and that will definitely, I believe, bring back the hope of because the current president will have to make his own policies, and that was one of my initial concerns when they came up with the policy in November last year, that Nigeria is a continuum. The current administration considered the policies of the incoming administration. Like in 2008 when the US was going to pass the bailout for the auto industry. The President Bush brought Obama and John McCain in to discuss about it, and they all agreed before he went ahead to push for that bill. So the President Buhari called Atiku, Peter Obi, and Governor Senator Tinubu at the time to ask them for their for their opinions. No, this is why everybody knows that this situation that they are doing, this problem that they have created for us, it is a political, thing, and it's almost worked. Thank God. So I hope the Nigerian people can also, because it's apart from the fact that maybe the CBN governor has said it right now, before the information will spread, before people will even have the confidence of collecting it, because they might not even be sure whether it's going to change again. We are not that informed in Nigeria. The number of people with BVN is about 56 million people. That's about 25 or less than 25% of our population. So those things they have a very long-term impact. A lot of businesses have already disappeared, and we will not have adequate statistics to account for it. There was a woman that I was going to help with to start up a business at the time that I had to stop like since January, because if we started it for her, who will buy from her? So we just have to wait, hoping that things will come. So and like they always say, when things go bad, they go bad. They go bad like a rocket. When they are getting better, they get better in feathers. So it is not going to be fast. We might still be feeling. I mean, definitely the president-elect is competent enough, but he has his job cut out for him, because to build confidence back in the Nigerian economy and in the system, it is going to be very, 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 very difficult. It's going to be a very, tough, clear task for him.
Okay, thank you, Marion Dotti. Now, Dipo, Marion Dotti mentioned earlier that he sees ego play somewhere in all of this that went on. A situation where the president gets daily briefings, not only security briefings, get daily briefings of what the pulse of Nigerians, what's going on a daily basis. It is assumed that he has perfect and adequate, in fact, sufficient knowledge of what Nigerians are going through, whether it's in Lagos or Akwa Ibom or in Benue or in Maiduguri. The president knows. He has it on his table. At a time like this, where after all the frustrations, the outburst, the protest, the reaction, and all of that, one would expect, the way we see them in other developed countries, for the government to say, Nigerians, we are sorry for what has happened. We didn't expect it to be this way, but the way it is right now, we're coming up with something else to ensure that this ends, and this is how we want to going forward. And because of this and because of that, we are now ensuring that we give you this, and we give you that, and we give you this, and all of that. They didn't come up to say that. Do you think this is really a re-echo of what a lot of people say is ego, just ego?
Yes, ego has a role to play, but I think what has the bigger role to play is the lack of empathy, which is something that we have always discussed here, that you cannot be an effective leader if you do not have empathy for the people you say you lead. Unfortunately, we have had that with a lot of our leaders, if not forever, in this country, that we have leaders that lack empathy for the people that they lead, because, like I said, I see no reason why the reactions we've gotten the last couple of weeks will have gone. So if there was empathy, there was no reason for the Supreme Court to have gotten involved in this matter in the first place. There was no reason, because Nigerians have been complaining daily, that this is what we're going through. These are the challenges. And it wasn't localized to maybe urban centers or rural areas. It was everybody, everywhere. So if there was empathy at play, you would be able to say, okay, you know what, let's see how we can walk this back. Do we extend the time? What do we need to put in place? We're saying they should do mobile transfers. Did we get any data ahead of time before we made this policy to say that, okay, the mobile transfers that we are saying they should resort to now, what was the success rate before we are adding all of this pressure to it? Because really, we may talk about running the country like a business or doing things efficiently. On some levels, certain things are really just common sense, right? It's really just common sense. You don't need to have a university degree or tertiary institution degree to know that putting together a policy like this, you need to work with data. The people who are the closest to the citizens are the commercial banks. You are their regulator. Call them. Let them know that you need X, Y, Z data. You don't need to tell them the reason why. I said this earlier on, a couple of weeks ago when we had this conversation. Data would inform the policy you make and let you know, is it going to succeed? Is it going to fail? This policy, to execute it, do I need 3 months? Do I need 6? Do I need 9? Do I need 12 or 18 months to execute it sufficiently if it is done in good faith? Because I will say again that good faith is one thing that is very missing in this particular conversation, as well as empathy. Data will let you know that for the online transactions that were done 6 to 9 months before December, that you said you want to implement the entire policy, oh, this is the failure rate, this is the success rate, and then saying, okay, this policy would add more pressure to this system, I don't think it's quite feasible. So how about we see how we can improve on the online platforms to ensure fortify the system to ensure that when there's more demand placed on the system, it doesn't crumble. Because it's really just common sense. But unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing. So that's why I said there's a lot of mischief and there's a lot of bad faith in the system. And Nigerians deserve a lot more. We deserve a lot better. And certain things, legal action needs to be taken, because I don't know, civic society, other folks around, action needs to be taken, because we have gone on. Are you confident
you see that?
Not sure, but we must put it out there, because in some cases you will find that certain folks do not even realize that it is an option. So they do not know that it can be done. But we must let people know that yes, it is an option and it can be done. Will we get the justice we deserve? Maybe not. But will we make a statement that you do not take Nigerians for granted? Yes, we will. Because we are where we are today because there has been a lot of action with lack of consequence. That is why we are where we are today. And with regards to the Supreme Court and the CBN governor, I will emphasize that there needs to be action taken. This is why. The particular word I say on this platform every single time, precedence. Because now the CBN governor has shown impunity towards the Supreme Court order. What will motivate any other public official to obey the court order of any other court in the land, let alone the Supreme Court? Because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And we must be very careful what precedents we are setting, what signals we are sending, and what message we are passing along about how we run our system. If we are a lawless country, or if we are a land that says that we are governed by laws, and we're saying we're civilized people, and we're saying these are the things that separates us from the people in the jungle.
Right, Marindati mentioned earlier that they were going to institute a class action. So perhaps he might need to come in now to speak about that, how they intend to go about that, and how far they are willing to go with that.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much for that question. Actually, I was going to talk about it because we are already in the process. We are already in court, and what we are holding on to is the fact that yes, the CBN governor is covered under the powers given to it by the CBN Act. But the CBN Act never told him he can tell Nigerians their money becomes useless in their hands because it shall be redeemed. So once we get our verdict, then we are going to have researchers all across the 36 states taking numbers of and names of phone numbers and names of all market women, all Nigerians. We are going to have a change.com, like a website where people will come and lodge their complaints, get as many Nigerians. We are trying to see if we can get 5 million Nigerians or more to just put their names down, and then we will go all as a group. Like the man that stripped himself naked in a bank, we will look for him. Like the radio presenter that died because he could not get money. We will look for all of them, and those ones will work with them if they don't have what's called legal representatives, and those ones will have their own special suit against the CBN governor. Exactly, because the only way, I think Nigerians, we are always too forgiving, and I believe we need to be ruthless because without consequences, human beings learn by operant conditioning. So if you don't condition them, they will repeat the same thing. So if we can, and I believe we can get the judgment, if we can get 5 million people, even if we are just asking for 10,000 naira from the CBN governor, that is a lot of money. And I believe our class action will lead to the largest ever settlement in Nigeria, in the history of Nigeria, because this is just total disregard for humanity. People have money, but they have to beg for transport. So even the rich man is poor. The poor man is obliterated. Their businesses have disappeared. So we are definitely going to do it, and we are just. It's not going to be a long-term thing, like maybe a year for us to get the old data that we need. But I mean, for cases like the statute of limitation should still be about 2 years. So we'll definitely consult with our lawyers, but it is already in the pipeline, and Emefiele must pay. And I also believe the Supreme Court should also hold the president in contempt after his immunity expired, because he did show contempt to the court on February 16, 2023.
Yeah, but Marindo, to the point there is, if it's going to take you about a year to achieve this, maybe before then, maybe Emefiele would have rounded off his tenure. I'm not sure how many more years he has in office, but to what objective will all of this be? Is it for him or the central bank to pay compensation, or what's the final objective of this?
Our strategic intervention is not towards the central bank, it's towards him as a person. So it definitely is it's probably not even going to wait till his time, because I can almost put my whole life savings to bet that the president-elect will, ask for his resignation. So he's definitely going to be out of office, but he is still liable for the actions that he did while he was in office, for the things he did while he was in office. So that is why we are going to, and he is, according to the law, he is not covered because the CBN Act never gave him that power. So that is the angle that we are going to focus on, owning on, and we are going to get him. It is a punitive, compensation, punitive damages against the man Emefiele for the suffering that he caused all Nigerians.
Yeah, but I wonder how.
It is inhuman.
Yeah, Marion Dottie, I wonder how justiciable this will be in the context of the fact that the policies he is implementing is of the CBN, and the policy the CBN implements per time is of the government of the day. So if we're looking from that window, or from that prism, I wonder how justiciable that will be to hold Godwin Emefiele as an individual responsible after his days in office for what he did while he was in office.
Because he went beyond his powers. The Constitution gave him a power. He should have stayed within the confines of that power. It shall be redeemed. The value of the money shall be redeemed. The way he even said it will also make our case very strong. Said your money is going to be useless in your hand. That's all. Very lackadaisical. He didn't even care about the poor man. People who, after they paid loans from their government salary, they have to go on with just 10,000 naira. And those people will have to pay 2,000 naira to withdraw 8,000 naira. 2,000 naira, they'll probably cook begiri and they will feed their children for maybe like another week. It is so heartless. So the fact that he went beyond the power granted to him, that is where we believe he is exposed, and we are going to try to prove it in court. Because once he is not given that power, then he is acting alone. So he's not acting as the CBN governor by making that statement. He is acting alone. And I'm in discussion with a lot of lawyers about this thing, and they think we have a very good prospect. He is acting alone. He is not covered.
All right, Dipo, I guess,
yes.
Are you in agreement with what he said?
Yes, I am. And I'd like to address part of what Mike said as to how justiciable this will be.
Yes.
And him being out of office, saying that part of what he did was part of the CBN's policy. However, if you add economic sabotage to it, is that within his charter as CBN governor? Because that's the byproduct, yes or no?
Well, it could be deductive. You could interpret it.
That's the byproduct of his policy. Now, the objective of every economic policy is to drive economic growth.
Right.
Now, doesn't mean they are always perfect, but it could mean that they could have certain shortfalls, but not grinding the economy of a country to almost a total halt, to where there are massive losses within the system across board. So that is part of the conversation that I believe that we need to have when we're talking about this.
In their own, recall that sometime, was it in November or October, when they came up with this policy, there were lined out objectives as to how they want and the reason for this policy and so on.
Yes.
So from that window, they may not, of course, nobody expects them to see it as sabotage. This is a policy of government that is meant to make the economy better and to ensure that inflation is brought down, and as the case may be, to reduce excess liquidity in the
So
the
at the
system
point
market.
of execution, and then you are saying that from day one, everything was going southward. What were they supposed to do? Did they bother to backtrack after getting all of that feedback from Nigerians? I believe that Nigerians have a case to be made against them.
In fact, the central bank at the time, I think it was in December or so, there was a statement, report that they even said there was sabotage within the system, sabotaging the policy, the effort of the central bank at the time.
That's beautiful. So when you take the CBN to court, you take Godwin to court, the people who are saboteurs or mini saboteurs to the system Bring them along too. Sue them along. It is beautiful. Let us cleanse the system of all the insanity and know the people that put us in this mess.
Right.
But I still maintain that there must be legal action taken and Nigerians must get some form of reprieve.
And we already have one in the pipeline. Let me come to you.
We have many more.
Marindati, now, if the government is to go ahead with this policy after December the 31st, what should be in place? And how do you expect the government to address perhaps the lapses and the loopholes that we have seen with regards to this policy?
For me, because I've listened to what a lot of the president-elect's conversation about monetary policy and all. I don't believe in the validity of this policy at all. We have more pressing needs about our monetary policy, the old exchange rate, the old weak naira. Those should be the priorities of the president. Trying to spend extra money to be changing naira. That is some undue stress that a weak Nigerian economy cannot even carry right now. The timing is bad. The policy has never worked historically for any of the reasons that it has ever been stated for, in my own personal opinion, from my own personal studies. So to me, if I was president-elect, I would let all the money, be legal tender in perpetuity while I fix the Nigerian economy, while I fix the value of the Nigerian naira, so that we don't have to be spending too much, so that the prices of goods will come down. When they were saying it's trying to mop up excess liquidity, money is not about the number on the paper. It is about the value of the currency. $20 is worth 14 times at least more than 1,000 naira, even though the number is 50 times less. So if you convert that 1.46 in 2014 to dollars, that would be about 7.3 billion. If you convert 3.23 to dollars, that would be about 4.2 billion. So that is to say the money in circulation actually has reduced because of the value. So why are we thinking about changing currency? It's not even a redesign. It just changed the ink. The ink for 100 naira, they put it on 500. So why do we focus on that? We should focus on our monetary policies and fix the economy and fix the the standard of living of the average Nigerian. And then they can now, if they feel they want to, unify the currency, they can now redesign.
All right, quickly, Dipo, your final word on this matter.
Okay, well, my final word will be re-echoing what I've been saying earlier. Nigerians need to get some reprieve and there must be legal action taken.
All right. We must thank you, gentlemen, strategy consultant Dipo Oyewole, as well as convener Social Rehabilitation Grace and Support Initiative, Marindati Oludare, for your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.